So we'll start off talking a little bit about the schedule and what you guys can anticipate today. And then I'm going to bring us into kind of why all of us are here today and start talking a little bit about the reforestation problem as we see it at American Forests. So that context will be started off by me, and then Carrie Levine and Jordan Combs are going to talk a little bit about Planscape and why they're a good fit for developing this reforestation module. Then we'll pivot into really fantastic suite of talks from all of you here, starting off with some overview of existing management support tools that we can potentially take a little bit of code base and try to collaborate with folks to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel here as we do develop this reforestation module. We'll pivot into a break, and then we're going to talk a little bit about genetics and assisted migration and how that is a really key component of any reforestation project. Pivot into building resilience, where we're going to talk a little bit about how we actually do that and think about reforestation as a restoration problem rather than just reforestation from, say, an agricultural perspective or kind of some of those historical ways of thinking about it. We'll move into lunch, and then we'll pivot to seedling survival and monitoring, the reforestation pipeline capacity, which I'm really excited to dig into a little bit because I do think that's going to be a key component of any module that we develop. We'll have another break, and then I think the meat and potatoes of this is really going to be an afternoon session that we start asking questions about what you all would like to see in a reforestation module, what the gaps and opportunities really are to develop that, and how we might want to go about building that as a community, because I do think that that community-centric approach is incredibly important. Questions, comments, or concerns about that overview to start off with? Okay, cool.
Let's hit record.
Thank you.
3 little dots.
Can I do that?
Yep. Oh,
it says it's being recorded. Okay, great. So since I did not introduce myself, my name is Libby Pansing. I am the Director of Forest and Restoration Science at American Forests. Based in Silverthorne, Colorado, I've been with the organization for about coming up on 4 years. And most of the time that I have been at American Forests, I have been working on developing collaborative all lands reforestation strategies for the organization. So I'm pretty excited to have this conversation with everyone and really talk a little bit about, what we think a reforestation module could look like. So without further ado, I do want to dive into the goal. Oh. Hang on, I just turned off my mic. Not sure how I pulled that off, but okay, we're back on. Can everybody in the room hear me? Yeah, great. So I think before I dive into this, what I want to talk about really quickly is just American Forests as an organization. So if you aren't familiar with American Forests, we have been around on this landscape for a fairly long time. We are about to celebrate our 150th anniversary. So we have been called one of the nation's oldest national conservation nonprofits. And really the goals that we have in this space are to reforest America. And we do that through, I would say, 3 different ways. One is we have a policy shop, so that those folks are helping to advance legislation that is useful for reforestation in particular in Washington. So American Forests is based in DC. And we also have an urban forestry or a tree equity component and a resilient forest component. So our tree equity division is really focused on improving access to green spaces and the benefits that trees provide in urban environments, whereas our resilient forest department is really focused on reforestation in the wild spaces. So National Forest Service, National Park Service, private lands outside in the rural areas across America. Like that is our main focus. And we exist, or I exist, Ben exists squarely within our resilient forest team. And we are really focused on helping to improve outcomes for reforestation across the West and the United States more broadly. That can look a lot of different ways. It can look like helping with carbon projects. Then Ben has been kind of stewarding some of those along at American Forest. It can look like private lands reforestation, which Ben is also doing a lot of work on. Kendall and Charlie have been working to support carbon budget models across the Western United States to help support some of those decisions that can be made about carbon sequestration. We have been supporting with planting, herbicide, all sorts of other components of the actual reforestation project across California, Oregon, Washington, now the Southwest, and other locations throughout the United States. So long story long, what we are really excited about is reforestation, right? We want to see trees get into the ground. And so it's kind of with that background and that vision that we come into this space with Planscape to really try to talk about how we can develop something that is useful to not only land managers, but to researchers and to others, policymakers as well. So in terms of our summit goals, we really want to start introducing the vision for the reforestation module. So what does that look like? What do we think it needs to look like? What do you guys think it needs to look like? And I'm going to be doing a lot of rambling at this point to basically kind of set the stage, but our intention here is to listen to you all. We want to know what foundation we need to build from to make a platform that is science-based and is actually going to help folks to do good, sustainable reforestation that doubles as restoration across the United States. So we're really excited to have all of you here contributing to that conversation and really helping us to figure out where to jump off and start so that we can incorporate all of the brilliant minds that are in this room and online to try to help us to understand where we go from here. Second, we want to help have you all have us understand recent advances and identify gaps. So I think one of the opportunities for this reforestation module is really to helping researchers also understand where they can come in and support those gaps that we need in order to make a module that is useful to land managers, right? There are gaps. I think, are all aware of that. And the question is, how do we collectively come together, identify those in a way that is useful to help the implementation of this work on the ground. So really trying to figure out how we do this research and tool integration and do it well. The third piece that we will be coming back to you all at some point to ask this question is we're really hoping to establish a steering committee for module development. So if you guys are really passionate about reforestation, about getting your research out to folks who are going to be able to use that on the ground, we really would appreciate your support in trying to get this developed. So keep that as a little earworm in the back of your mind so that we can come back and ask you that question and maybe tap on your expertise to help us to develop this out in a way that makes the most sense for the most people and the broadest geographies. And then last but not least, we really want to draft a collaborative proceedings paper. So essentially taking the information that's been presented today, compiling those key insights, the gaps that we've identified, and using that as an opportunity as a launch point to move into next steps, identify those gaps, and hopefully continue to facilitate research. And what we're thinking right now is that over the course of this kind of process is there may be opportunities for 3 different papers. The first would be a proceedings. The second would be a literature review of the state of reforestation research for the purpose of implementation. And the third would be an actual paper that really discusses the module itself and is released with the tool. So all of these ideas, I really want to stress first and foremost, are very preliminary, and we're open to all of the feedback that you all have to give to us, but really do want to kind of just identify that. And then last but not least, expand and support the community of practice for active reforestation. So really getting all of you in the same room, whether it's virtual or physical, is just a fantastic step. And I know everybody is pretty familiar with one another and the research that they're doing, but I think there are ample opportunities for additional collaborations and places where we can work together to make the impact on the ground just amplify that. And so I'm really excited to see what this leads to in terms of developing that community practice. So thank you all for being here. I do want to circle back to our summit goals for just a second. So the vision for the reforestation module. And I want to talk about that from the standpoint of what we know about the reforestation need across the US right now. And none of these numbers are going to be surprising to anybody who's sitting in this room, right? But we know, and the Forest Service has told us, that there's about a 4 million acre reforestation backlog. And that's just on National Forest System lands, right? We also know that only about 6% of the post-wildfire planting needs are met annually, right? We are not doing enough. Full stop. So how do we take the amazing brains that are in this room? How do we take the amazing research that has been done and apply that into a tool that can actually help us to advance the pace and scale of reforestation across the United States? That's really the goal here, right? We know that there is a ton of foundational legwork that has already been done. We know that there are tools that already exist. Our goal is to really help to better integrate, digest, and provide that information to folks across the Western United States and more broadly, hopefully eventually, so that we can get that work done on the ground, right? So that we can increase that 6% to something more reasonable. So we kind of come into this from the standpoint of what I've been doing in American Forest for the last about 4 years, which is developing reforestation strategies. So that has ranged from anything from the campfire reforestation plan that we worked on with the BLM, which was kind of our first foray into this, to an integrated post-fire resilience strategy with South Central Oregon, with the Fremont-Wainema National Forest, and we're currently working on one in partnership with the Arapaho-Roosevelt National Forest in Colorado. We've done some for the San Bernardino National Forest, for Yosemite National Park, and all of these different reforestation strategies have been variants of the same problem, right? Which is, how do we actually go through a fairly simplistic process to understand and actually get that work to happen on the ground? And so what we've kind of turned this into is that we have essentially a minimum viable product that we've looked at American Forest from this perspective to actually develop these reforestation strategies. And I'll talk a little bit about those variants, but really this comes back to, what are our vision and goals? So how do we define the long-term vision for the landscape? How do we make sure that this is restoration and not just reforestation? How do we make these lands adapted to future climates, right? What are the actual goals that are not only important for the land managers in that particular location, but also the community members? So that's part one. Part two is that reforestation opportunity. How do we actually assess where on the landscape the reforestation need is? I know a lot of you are doing work on that, and really excited to hear about the tools that you all are developing or have developed, because we have used those in some shape or form to help support the implementation of these reforestation strategies for the last few years now. So just so excited to actually hear you guys talk a little bit more about those and how we can incorporate this into the Planscape module. The third piece is prioritization. And this is where I think it kind of tends to get a little bit tricky, right? Is we're talking about prioritization not only from a land management standpoint and what the land management mandates are for individual locations and jurisdictions, but we're also talking about community priorities. We're talking about ecosystem services. We're talking about the carbon sequestration, biodiversity, all of these important components that we know of, but really have yet to be kind of implemented into that post-fire reforestation process to date. And so is there a way that we can collectively come together to really think about this prioritization process a little bit more? And I know that a lot are, but one thing I want to highlight, so this is a map of South Central Oregon. So I'm going to try to do this on the screen, so hopefully everybody can see, if you guys can see my cursor. So this is South Central Oregon, Klamath and Lake counties. And we have the Bootleg fire, which burned in 2021, is this really large blob right here. So Watson Creek Fire, the Bratton Fire, Cougar Peak, Patton Meadow Fire, and the 242, which burned. Oh, you can't see my screen. Okay. I draw that. Does that work? This is going to be really ugly.
We can see that, yes.
Okay, so this is the Bootleg Fire, the 2021 Bootleg Fire that burned across South Central Oregon. So if that gives you a sense of kind of where this is, and the dark colors on this map are our high priority areas for reforestation. That's about 57,000 acres just across these fire footprints that burned since 2018. And so figuring out from an implementation standpoint where to go and how to make decisions of where to go in those 57,000 acres is really important, right? Those are going to have lasting consequences for how these results play out on the landscape in terms of our ecosystem services, our water provisioning, our biodiversity, all of those pieces. So coming up with a framework that is helpful to allow us to do this well, I think is a really key component of any kind of reforestation module that we're talking about. We also include best practices and information about the reforestation pipeline. So best practices we kind of treat as a literature review to kind of, think about what is known in those particular locations and how we can actually encourage folks to take that research and apply it on the ground. And then the last piece is really looking at this reforestation pipeline. What is the seed inventory that's available? How do we actually bolster that? Do we have sufficient seeds across the landscape that we're trying to plant? What about workforce capacity? All of these questions that are really key to addressing the reforestation problem, right? Again, I don't think any of this is new to any of us, but I think that having this understanding of what this minimum viable product is for how we've been thinking about the reforestation pipeline is really important. So from my perspective, right, this is just my perspective, I am so excited to have this conversation about how we can actually develop this end-to-end tool, right? I think that the need for it is really a testament to all of you who are here, right? Like, you guys wouldn't be here if you didn't think that reforestation was important and that increasing the pace and scale of reforestation was a priority. And so we have this opportunity to really take this and try to understand how we can use all of y'all's research and the processes that Planscape brings to the table to develop a tool that can help us really accelerate the process of reforestation on the ground. And I am so excited about that. So end to end, from seed to post-planting maintenance and monitoring, we have the opportunity, I think, to really kind of develop this out as a whole process so that we can understand what that's going to look like on the ground, not only currently for reforestation, but what those outcomes are going to look like in the future. I think it needs to be all lands. Yeah, we can start thinking about, how do we actually bridge the gap between national forest system land and private lands? How do we actually find locations where we can group those together? How do we actually use shared stewardship in an effective manner across these jurisdictions and boundaries? How do we do this in a way that allows timely response by land managers? I think that, to me, is one of the biggest components. Is it takes us a while to figure out how to do these. It takes our land managers a while to figure out how to do these. So how do we do them quickly? And then last but not least, and I think really most importantly, it's going to leverage the strong foundation of existing tools and peer-reviewed research that you all have provided. So thank you for being here. Again, this is just my kind of ideas as to what I've kind of learned over the last few years of doing this, and the excitement that I have to bring all of you together and see what everybody wants, the brainstorm process for how this looks. But thank you so much for being here and for really supporting this kickoff. So with that, we're super lucky. I've been super lucky to partner with Planscape as we kind of develop this out, and just to go back to like the shared values and opportunity to really kick this out to the most folks for the most good. Planscape has been an awesome partner in that. So really excited to hear from Carrie and Jordan about a little bit more about Planscape and what they do and their process.
Thanks so much, Libby, and thank you everyone for being here. I'm pretty just blown away by the time that everyone is committing to this, and I know time is incredibly valuable for everyone in this room and online. So I just really appreciate it. I'm thrilled. I'm going to do a little bit of a Planscape overview for those in the room that aren't really familiar with the tool, or maybe aren't familiar with exactly where we brought the tool up to date. I'm going to do the overview more from like the ecosystem ecology side, and then hand it over to Jordan to talk about the product development. Oh, this is me. I'm at Spatial Informatics Group. I've been there for about 4 years now. I'm the domain lead of the forest and agriculture domain. And I've been working on Planscape since early on, I guess, but really trying to help bring some of the like ecology and planning expertise in line with the product development and make sure that those are in sync. But it's been a really cool opportunity as more of like a kind of academic researchy person to see how software gets developed and to be part of the software development process. And so I just want to invite everyone in the room and online today to get involved to whatever extent you'd like to on the product development side and really getting your research and models into these workflows, because leveraging them in this software environment's been really valuable, and I've seen a lot of really cool work come out of it already, and it's been exciting as more of someone on more of the academic side. Just to kind of start out, the Planscape is a cooperative. We've collaborated closely with the state of California, the Forest Service, the Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force, UC Berkeley and UC Davis, actually a lot of UCs, I shouldn't have called those out, all the UCs, the California Climate Hub, and then especially want to acknowledge google.org for supporting this from the original like seed and idea through seeing it developed over the last several years. It's truly been a collaborative effort, and everyone's involvement has been really formative for how the tool has been developed. And that's really important because that means we're building something that fits the needs across this really broad user group, and I hope also represents a lot of the needs of the people participating today. We keep saying this, and it's worth reemphasizing that we're really committed to the practice of open science and open source. Everything in the tool aligns with these values and with the value of making this tool and data and information available to the most people for the greatest good. And we doing it that way has given us the flexibility to leverage a lot of these open source tools and make something modular that fits the needs of a lot of different users. So we'll probably say this a lot, but our goal with Planscape isn't to necessarily build new models or build new tools or the intent is not to say that like the information that we need isn't already out there, because just everyone here is a testament to how dedicated this community is to developing the science. It's really meant to be a centralized way to bring the science together and provide a way for people to use a lot of these models and data that are hard to access, or maybe not all in one centralized place, or not easy to link together. So Jordan's going to talk a little more in depth about how we link a lot of these planning and prioritization models and vegetation models and fire models together into one tool that you don't need coding or GIS expertise to use. And so this is the three main services, I guess that's probably not the right word, but the three main forces that we're bringing together in the Planscape UI is a data analytics engine where you can bring in raw spatial data and use a bunch of different modular tools that we are developing to get climate informed information, to get risk management information, and then to plan and generate project areas or prioritize across existing projects, and then to look at potential treatment outcomes. And then there's also sort of a feedback there of looking at the treatment outcomes and then planning based on potential outcomes. And so these are from like the data and modeling side, what I see as kind of the three main thrusts of Planscape and how we want to orient our thinking towards. And with that, I will, oh, nope, I have one more slide. I wanted to reiterate that the reforestation module from like our Planscape perspective, Libby provided such a good summary of the goals for this module. From the Planscape perspective, we want to just emphasize that landscape managers are planning across both burned and unburned landscapes. And so thinking about the landscape as a whole in this Planscape context, I think is really important. And integrating reforestation priorities along with other land management and landscape resilience priorities is something that that doing this work in Planscape can allow for. And then also we're just really oriented towards what we've heard users asking for. And in the reforestation realm, there's a lot of conversation both about assisting with prioritization, but also with the pipeline, including workforce and materials and just all of the different aspects of reforestation that are involved, not just the project planning and like the spatial project planning. So we want to really think creatively about how we can pull some of those other aspects of prioritization and planning into a reforestation module. And so our goals from the Planscape development side are to leverage existing science data and tools, develop solutions for collaboration. So Planscape also, the UI development is has a heavy focus on how to support collaboration within and across projects, and Jordan can speak to that a little bit. And then just with the MVP to think about like what are the biggest questions, the biggest gaps, where can we provide the most information for the broadest user group to start, and then continue to add capabilities as time goes on. So that's where we're oriented from the Planscape science side. Yeah.
All right. Hello, everybody. So my name is Jordan Combs. I'm a product manager at Spatial Informatics Group. I'm going to go next because I don't like that picture of myself. So I'm hoping what I can do is try to provide a lens for which the product side of Planscape, we're really looking at what we want to get out of this summit and what we're really looking to partner with all of you on. So hopefully I can try to give a little bit of context and give you some information about that. So with Planscape, we have here up at the top, as I've said, we partnered with Google.org to do the transition about 2.5 years ago, or I guess, no, that's not true, almost 2 years ago now. And so we're trying to take Planscape from its kind of original vision up here at the top, which is taking available data sets and being able to use those in Forces and provide people with spatially optimized project areas that they can do for treatment. But now as we grow, we're really trying to take Planscape across the entire United States and make it this platform that can be used for planning. And we know that planning is very complex, and we're trying to provide these tools for land managers to really give them a 360-degree view of what they need to do during their planning. So I'm going to try to highlight some of these sections. I'll try to go quickly because I know we want to get to talking about the work that all of you are doing. Really important component of this is collaboration. We know that these teams are very large. Sometimes they're very spread out, and they all bring something different and have different interests as far as the planning process goes. And so we're really trying to build tools that allow for collaboration, and then allowing users to be able to set up these workspaces that allows them to create these planning areas for which they are managing. And so this is where we really want to highlight and frame what we at Planscape are really looking forward to and excited about partnering with all of you on, is creating these data analytic tools. So we're trying to take these kind of disparate, some more complex, some a little bit more user-friendly tools and make them available to land managers. So perhaps they don't have to learn a new coding language or have high GIS skills, and they can take some of these tools like Burn Pro 3D, working with FMI on some of their risk-based strategic planning, and then obviously partnering with American Forest and taking the use cases and these methodologies and really bring them to our users. And so the idea with this is not necessarily that every planning process has to be the same, but to give you a suite of tools that you can take, and for whatever your particular user need is, you can apply those to what you need. And then moving on, so all of these data analytics, so the idea is that we're able to provide people with outputs or provide them with data that then be ingested. Oh, I did it. Sorry, I thought I had to do that. Thanks, Rob. So moving on to forces. So allowing people to take the data that's coming out of data analytics or take the data that they're bringing, whether it's regional, local level data or data from a larger source, and be able to use those in forces to be able to target and understand where they need to apply reforestation, apply treatments, and to really give them that stronger vision of where are they going to be able to make the most impact. Treatment outcomes. So this is another, so post having, okay, this is where I need to prioritize, allowing people to be able to use these tools to be able to assess the outcomes of treatments. So using FES, FSIM, 204 Delta from Landfire. Yeah, like I said, just really trying to bring these to the user in a really user-focused centric way. And then reporting. I know this is a huge challenge, is getting all of your information to centralized space, trying to automate that so that way people can have that at their fingertips and they can be able to not have to spend a bunch of time managing, organizing, reporting. They can report that out and then get to doing the work that they need to do. So in today, the two spaces that I really am excited to focus on is in the data analytics piece and in the reporting piece. And so quickly, so what we're really trying to do here is take research-informed, user-centric tool development, bridging science and practical solutions. And so what I really see us as what we're trying to do is take all the amazing research that all of you have done and put that into the hands of practitioners in the most user-friendly and mindful way. So integrate cutting-edge research, and best available science to address real-world challenges, design solutions that are tailored to user needs. That's something that's really important to us, is really speaking to these land managers and saying, okay, what are your needs? What are the challenges? What are the problems that you're trying to address? And so in looking at these like key questions, I think the kind of heart of this is like what I'm most excited about to do today is just listen and hear what all of you have to say about the challenges. I think the Libby did a great job in talking about the problem that we're trying to address. And so I'm excited to hear from all of your perspectives. And so, yeah, we're thrilled to figure out, okay, what are the challenges we're trying to solve? What are the gaps in research that hopefully us at Spatial Informatics Group will have the opportunity to work with you all to plug that into this tool and then translate that into this platform to support people on their larger planning pipelines. That's all I got.